I am Larry Hoy, biker rider legend, and I'm back. I've been away a while. I appreciate you all waiting off me. I was out there running Route 66 with the family, a trip that cannot be forgotten. If you want to find out more about it, go to my Facebook page, Larry Hoy Author. I posted tons of pictures. Great thing. But right now, you've joined us on First Chapter Podcast, opportunities where I introduce you to some great books. I'll bring the first couple chapters today. Today's story is The Persian Penguin. This is a parody of a Ricky Spillane type of series that was written in the spirit of the Maltese Falcon. Picked up this book out on one of my conventions out there and met the Hatter family and some great people. But right now, we're going to start First Chapter Podcast. Be sure, before I get started, while I'm thinking about it, reach down below, subscribe, and hit the subscribe button on YouTube if you're there. If you're on my Facebook channel, Larry Hoy Author, be sure and like me there so you can stay up to date with all my latest and greatest updates, achievements, and, go check out the pictures of Route 66. It was amazing. Anyway, let's get started. So like I said, today's first chapter is The Persian Penguin. And they were kind enough to cut me a copy here. So this is the Amazon blurb. The Persian Penguin. Private Detective Dean Diamond and his partner Simon Mills are hired by the beautiful Miss Lavender to track down her sister's brutish boyfriend, Lenny King. Diamond is dubious, but the pair take the case, and when both Mills and King wind up in body bags within 24 hours, Diamond realizes that there's far more to this case than Lavender let on. All right. Let's get started with first chapter, shall we? Chapter 1. Cindy Wilson scurried into my office, grabbed the rattle end of my tail, and wedged it under the desk so it wouldn't make any noise. Let me look at you. I straightened my shoulders along with my tie. Do we have a client? Yes, her name's Miss Lavender, so no hunching over and keep your coils under the desk. But I'm a snake. It's natural. Shoulders back, hands on desk, and absolutely no quick movements. Since the dormouse wasn't about to let the new client into the room until I complied, I figured they were a small mammal. Come to find out they were anything but. Mr. Diamond will see you now, said Cindy, and ushered in the most gorgeous mongoose I'd ever seen. Dark brown fur and hypnotic eyes accentuated an Eastern heritage, and her fine clothes signaled that she either had money or was a good seamstress. A soft gasp escaped her lips as her gaze flicked from me to Cindy's retreating back. Please listen, Miss Lavender. Sit. I promise not to bite. I motioned to the chair in front of the desk and waited for her to sit down before I sat back on my own coils. I tried a wheeled chair one time, but after rolling over my tail 2 or 3 times, I opted for no chair at all. The tapping of Cindy's typewriter could be heard through the closed door. I waited as the mongoose pulled a handkerchief out of her handbag and composed herself before asking, How can I help you, Miss Lavender? I don't know where to start. How about from the beginning? Tears welled up in her eyes and she dabbed at them with her handkerchief. It's my little sister. We live in New York, you see, and, she's so young. I was supposed to be looking after her while her parents were away in Europe. Oh, please, Mr. Diamond, I must get her back before they return. When are they due back? In 2 weeks. I know it's not a lot of time, but I just didn't know what to do. Should I have called the police? I don't know anyone to advise me. I was just so afraid she'd do something like this. Clients telling me their troubles in a convoluted way came with the territory, but a young female traveling across country sounded like there was a male involved somewhere. I take it she sent you a letter as to her whereabouts and what she's up to? Yes, and I telegrammed her right back, pleading with her to come home. Maybe I should have told her I was coming. So you have an address? No, general delivery. I wrote her a second letter and waited at the post office, but she never came. But I did see Lenny King. I nodded, urging her to go on, and I flicked my tongue out to taste the air. A heavy scent of lavender had a lot, but it couldn't completely hide the taste of fear in the room. He won't tell me where Lacey is. Only she's happy, but I don't believe him. He's so brutish. He won't even talk to me on the telephone. Several more sniffles later, she continued. I made him promise to let her know that he'd seen me and to bring her to the hotel if she'd only make sure she's all right. He said he would, but... The opening of the door cut her words. We both turned to see the person entering. Simon Mills was a deep green anaconda, much older and thicker than a rattlesnake like me. He bragged about wrestling alligators, but while his arms were still well muscled, his middle was beginning to show a little bit of a paunch. Through his tailor-made suit, tried to hide some of his flaws. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Miles pulled his hat from his head and made to back out. It's all right, Simon. This is Miss Lavender. Miss Lavender, this is my partner, Simon Mills. Mills pulled his coils into the room, shut the door, and slithered over the corner in front of to the corner of my desk. He nodded politely to the mongoose, but kept her lidless eyes while I was explaining the situation. Miss Lavender's sister ran away from New York with a male by the name of Lenny King. Miss Lavender's hoping to get her to come back home. She's supposed to meet with King at her hotel. When? Tonight, 8 o'clock. The corner of Mill's lip raised in a slight smile. So the plan is to kidnap her back, so to speak? Miss Lavender's hand and handkerchief immediately went to her face, while I cursed the fact I didn't have legs to kick my partner with. Mill's idea of subtle was about as akin to a sledgehammer on a framing nail. First, let's find out where Lenny King is staying, I said, hoping my interruption would clue him in. Since you're meeting King tonight in the lobby, I'm assuming we can tail him to where he's staying and find your sister. Of course, if she comes to the hotel with him, you can hopefully persuade her to go home with you without too much fuss. And if not, we'll find other ways, Mills explained his ideas by cracking his knuckles. But you must be careful. What if he does something to my sister? You can't let him hurt her. The mongoose sobbed, but managed to keep the tears from spilling onto her fur. Don't worry, we'll handle it. You can trust us. Oh, but I do trust you. I'm just terribly frightened. Mills wasn't about to be left out of the conversation and asked, Is this King guy planning on marrying your sister? She shook her head. No, apparently he has a wife and kit in England, and that's why my sister left the way she did. I pulled a pad of paper over along with a pencil. Can you give us a description of Lenny King? Yes, he's a ferret, much taller than I, and with dark eyes and wide dark patches of fur on his face. He's a rather loud and, well, a bit of a bully, very threatening in his manner. Aside from species, I asked about and wrote down any distinguishing markings. When I felt we had enough information, I said, Well, we'll have a male there tonight. But can't you or Mr. Mills be there personally? I'd feel better if it was one of you. I guess it'll cost more. I can pay. The female opened her purse and pulled out 2 $100 bills and set them on my desk. Yeah, said Mills. I'll handle it myself. Oh, thank you. Miss Lavender stood up and shook Mills' scaly hand. Thank you so much. Then she returned to me and did the same. Glad to help. Just remember, meet King downstairs in the lobby if possible, so Mills can get a good look at him and pick up his scent. At that point, I slithered out from behind my desk and escorted Miss Lavender to the corridor door before returning to my office. Mills was inspecting one of the bills. "They're good," he said, and folded the bill before stuffing it into his pocket. "And there was more in her bag." I took the other bill. "Don't squeeze her too hard, okay? What do you think of her?" Mills chuckled. "Well, that's rich coming from you." "She's a dame, and she's a sweet-smelling animal. To the winners go some spoils." Mills slithered out from my office, still laughing while I grabbed for one of my cigarettes. Mills could be a right bastard, but something didn't sit right with me in this case. Chapter 2. The ringing of the telephone woke me from a dead sleep, and I reached for the phone, knocking it off the side table in the process. "Hello? Dean? This is Joe Dewey. Simon's dead." "What?" Sleep mixed with shock as I listened to the voice on the other end of the phone, but in the end I had enough wherewithal to say, "Give me 15, and I hung up. I flipped on the light, rolled a cigarette, and sat on my coils smoking, trying to take it all in. None of what came to mind was good. The dull moan of the Alcatraz foghorn wafted through the open window along with the cool, wet air, making me want to crawl back under the covers. The clock on the nightstand said the time was just after 2. After closing the windows, I traded my striped pajama type for a warm shirt and suit along with a tailored pant leg and suspenders specifically made to fit a snake. After calling for a cab, I waited for someone to ring the street doorbell because I didn't want to deal with the night air. The taxi took me over to where Bush Street roofed Stockton before sliding downhill to Chinatown. Then clammy fog blurred the street, but it didn't keep the gawkers from trying to get a peek at the scene. I even spotted a couple of faces in the curtained windows, all looking in the direction of an alleyway. I rolled and lit another cigarette and looked over to the area before slithering up Bush Street to the alley in question. A Doberman in uniform growled at me when I got too close. "Stand back. Mind your own business." "The name's Dean Diamondback. Joe Dewey called me and asked me to come by." The dog sniffed and nodded and let me through. Halfway up the alley, an ambulance was parked to the side with the vultures, who drove, smoking, waiting for all clear to haul off their cargo. Behind the vehicle stood a fence. Beyond the fence was a steep drop to Stockton Street and the billboard advertising something that didn't interest me. A 10-foot patch of fence had the top of the section ripped free from one post but still hanging onto the other. 15 feet down, Simon Mills' winding form lay hooked over a boulder that jutted out at the side of the slope. 2 dogs stood by the body. One kept his flashlight on the corpse, while the other ran along the slope. The corgi recognized me and called my name, and I bounded over the alley towards me. "Hi, Dean, I thought you'd like to see the scene before we took him away." Somehow, Joe's short legs managed to carry him over the broken section of the fence. "Thanks, Joe. What happened?" No matter how dire the circumstances, Joe always looked happy and swore it was because of his fluffiness. "Someone either knew snake anatomy or got really lucky. They shot him right in the ticker." He pulled out a revolver from his pocket to show me, its surface covered in mud. "Ever seen this?" I knew better than to touch the thing. "Looks like a Webley Foosbury automatic revolver. They don't make 'em anymore." "How many shots were fired?" "Only one. Mills would have already been dead when we busted the fence thing over. Have you ever seen this thing before?" "I've seen Webley Foosburys before, but if that's what you're asking." I looked over at the fence and talked as I moved. "Mills must have been standing where you are now. Back to the fence or front?" Joe's eyes dropped as he watched me. "Front. by the look of him. So whoever killed him was about here, and he went over? I stood in the front of the corgi and raised my hand. Mills was a big snake. There's no telling how tall the shooter was. Who found him? The beat cop, and even that was just by chance. The mutt was coming up the brush street when he noticed the fence, and that was only because the headlights of someone turning around tossed some light in there. He got curious, and that's it. The vehicle was gone by the time he got there, and no one came out of the alley while he was coming down from Powell. We know nobody slipped under the billboard because the weather had everything a soggy mess, and there's no tracks of any kind, unless you count Mills and the gun. Anyone hear the shot? Seriously, Dean, no one I could have... Not only could I have just gone there, but the weather's messing with my nose. Even my partner's having trouble picking up much more than the smell of the trash and earthworms. Don't worry, we'll find somebody. Now come on and have a look at him. Joe turned, but before he could hop the fence, I said, "No." I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to climb over the fence. The dog looked at me with his ears down, but waddled back over. Mill's gun was still holstered at his hip, and his coat buttoned. It was never fired. He also has over $100 in his wallet, so we know he wasn't mugged. Was he working? Yes. He was supposed to be tailing a ferret named Lenny King. I gave Joe the description Miss Lavender gave me. Why were you tailing him? We were trying to figure out where he lived. We didn't know exactly and what he was up to, but that's where we were trying to find out. Suddenly, I needed to get out of the alley. I couldn't breathe. Listen, I'm going to go break the news to Mill's wife. Joe opened and closed his mouth several times before saying, "It's tough, I know. Mills had his faults, but I guess he had his good points." "Yeah," I said, and slid out of the alley. Too bad I couldn't think of any. There was an all-night drugstore at the Bush and Taylor Street, and I used the payphone, only it wasn't Rita Mills' number I managed to call. Cindy wasn't too happy about being woken up, but when I told her what happened, she was wide awake. "Listen, sweetheart, would you mind calling Rita and let her know?" "Me? But..." "Please, for me." "Why don't you do it?" "I can't deal with it right now. Please?" Cindy said something I thought I would never pass her lips, but agreed. "Thanks. And Cindy, make sure she stays away from the office for a while, will you?" "And if she insists on seeing you?" "Well, you think of something. Just don't promise anything. You know how Rita can get." "Do I ever?" "Thanks. You're a real lifesaver. Bye." The hands on my alarm clock read 3:45 when I got back to the apartment. I dropped my hat and coat on the Murphy bed and headed straight for the kitchen for the rum I had stashed in the cupboard and washed out a jam jar to drink it out of. Once back in the main room, I slugged down a glass and set everything on the end table before curling up on the bed and rolling another cigarette. I was on my third glass and fifth cigarette when I heard the street doorbell ring. The clock said 4:30. Swearing a blue streak, I slid from the bed to the telephone box beside the bathroom door and pressed the button that released the street door lock. I heard the grating rattle of the elevator as it ascended and dreaded the opening of the door to the corridor until I heard the heavy footsteps, that is, and I released a sigh of relief that it wasn't the female I originally expected. Half smiling, I opened the door to see Joe Dewey, the corgi I met earlier in the morning, and Lieutenant Haskell, a boxer that didn't particularly like me. "Fancy meeting you two. Come on in." I closed the door behind them while Joe took the sofa. Haskell planted his rear on the chair next to the end table. I grabbed a couple more jars out of the kitchen so they could share in the rum, and I coiled back up on the Murphy bed. Joe drank his down, but Haskell only sipped at the drink before putting it on the table by his elbow. The boxer's gaze roamed the room before settling on the corgi. The dog shifted to the sofa before asking, Did you call Mill's wife? I nodded. How did she react? I shrugged. Haskell leaned forward. What kind of gun did you carry? I don't. Never cared for them. There's some at the office though, of course. I'd like to see them. Is there one there? No, and you're welcome to look if you have a search warrant. They gave me a nice view of Haskell's teeth while Joe let out a low whine. What do you want, Haskell? Joe spoke up instead. We're not here to make trouble, Dean. You may not be, but we both know Haskell here would love to have a pair of snakeskin boots. So why don't you stop fooling around and tell me what this is all about? Come on, Dean, said Joe. We're here because you wouldn't tell us anything about Lenny King. Haskell decided not to wait and got up on the fence and got into my face. Oddly enough, I was either too tired or too liquored up for my tail to rattle. You're on slippery slope, Diamond. You better start giving us some answers. Stop acting like you're the first mutt to tangle with me and tell me what you two are sniffing around for. Either that or get the hell out and let me get some sleep. Who's Lenny King? I told Joe what I know about him. That wasn't much. Why are you following him? It's not like we had much to go on. As to the reason why Mills was following him, we got paid by a client to do things like that. And don't ask me about my client. You know I can't say anything until I talk to them first. We're talking about murder, Diamond. Well, what are you going to do, bite me? Remember, I can bite back. I finally got my tail working and the noise brought the boxer up short and the corgi off the sofa. Come on, Dean, we don't want any trouble. We just want to find Miss Mills' killer. Don't worry, I'll find his killer myself. That's why we're here, said Haskell, and Joe let out another whine. Something in his tone made him think I was missing something. So, who gave you fleas? Haskell showed his teeth again and barked. Lenny King was shot in the front of his hotel a half an hour after you left the scene where Mills bought it. Joe here says you were in a hurry and didn't want to see your partner. Joe's ears flattened to his head and he managed to look both cute and pitiful. You didn't call the wife either, but sent that dormouse of yours to do it. That gives you plenty of time to get to King's place over on Jerry near Leavenworth and shoot the ferret. So, you think not only I knew where King lives, but knew he had headed straight home from killing Mills? What am I, psychic? What time did you get home? 3:45, I said. If the boxer had a tail, he probably would have been wagging it. We know you weren't here at 3:45. Where'd you go? Along Bush Street. And no, I don't have any witnesses. Why don't you sit down and finish your drink? Joe, you want another one? The corgi shook his head, but Haskell ignored his glass. Listen, I may not look at it, but Mills' death rattled me. You two come here trying to shake me down isn't helping, but at least I know where I stand. I moved to a more comfortable position on the mattress. Is King dead? Yeah, he died before he could tell anyone anything, said Haskell. And you're going to pin his death on me without any evidence. Maybe fabricate some? Come on, Dean, whined Joe as Haskell growled. How did I shoot King? It's a fascinating story. So how did I shoot King? Is it a fascinating story? Haskell said, 4 times in the back with a .45 from across the street of the hotel. Of course, nobody saw anything. The ferret had a Luger in a shoulder holster. It hadn't been fired, said Joe. Yet another person with an unidentified weapon. The hotel staff know anything about him? Was he staying alone? He'd been there a week and all alone, said Joe. Did you find anything in his room? Who was he with? What was it? What he was? That's why we're here talking to you, Diamond. Why can't you get it through your thick head, Haskell? I've never seen Lenny King, dead or alive. Lieutenant Haskell grabbed a glass of rum, downed it in his contents, and stormed out of my apartment. Joe followed, looking dejected, but not before saying, "Good night, Dean." When they were gone, I got undressed and crawled into my bed. All right, it's just starting to get really good. Can't wait to see what's happening next. Hey guys, I'm sorry it took me so long to get back to you on this book. Like I said, Route 66 was awesome. So if you get out there, well, first things first. If you like the story, I'm going to put a link down below. This is a book 3 in a series of their animalistic detectives. They've got a lot of really great parody books out there. So if you like the comedy stuff, right there it is. And also, like I said, drop them an email. I'll put all their information down below. Reach out to them and tell them you heard about the story here and you're looking forward to hearing more. Thank you much. All right. Glad you stuck with me this long. Hey, I just want to appreciate everybody. This is the First Chapter Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Hoy, biker writer legend. Reach out to me on Facebook. I'm at Larry Hoy Author. Reach out to me there. You can find me. Supporting my channel. Boom. My latest and greatest Hit World book series. The latest book, Demon's Kiss, is out on Amazon right now. You can get it there. And enjoy all the Hit World novels. We got a new series coming out, Hit World Valkyries, too. Getting excited. Anyway, thank you. We'll talk more at you later. See you next week here on First Chapter.